Welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk to Adam Draper, a fourth generation venture capitalist and founder of Boost VC, one of the most active Bitcoin incubators. Co-hosts today are Job Hartog of blocktrail.com and Johan Schaap of fastmovingtargets.nl, and my name of course is Paul Buitink. Viewers can ask questions using the Q&A tool, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. We're going to talk with Adam about his investment philosophy and his plans for the Bitcoin ecosystem. Adam, awesome to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Yeah, well, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk to everyone who is watching, and the people who will view this after it's been posted to YouTube. You asked about my investment philosophy. I'll talk about sort of my general background, and then I'll go through how I choose companies and also why I'm doing Bitcoin. And I founded. The best way to start is I founded a company called Expert Financial about 7 years ago to help later stage companies raise capital online. The idea was to help, like, before Facebook went public, be a liquid market before it goes public. I ran that for about 3 or 4 years. I made every mistake known to man, like fundraising mistakes, hiring mistakes, product mistakes, all types of mistakes. And what I found was, over that time, I was able to use my experience to be able to help entrepreneurs not make those same mistakes. I helped one of my friends come up with their idea, build their product, and raise capital, and that was very fulfilling for me. And so I really wanted to move more in that direction. And so I talked to my CEO, who I'd been working with for a bunch of years, and I said, I really want to move in this direction of helping early stage companies. He said, you've been here for about 4 years, why don't you go try to do that? So I actually ended up launching something called Boost Funder, which was to help early stage companies raise capital online. And we quickly realized we didn't like being the middleman between entrepreneurs and investors. And I'm breezing through this, there's a lot of things that happen in between, but basically, we realized that we really wanted to just mentor and get companies to the point where investors would want to invest in them. And so doing that in bulk is called an accelerator. And so what we ended up starting was an accelerator called Boost. Our first session had no focus. We were just trying to make sure that the wheels would stay on the bus while it was moving at 90 miles per hour. And then between the first and the second sessions, we were talking about different technologies that we could really get behind and try to focus on. And I had a background I invested in Coinbase right before I had started Boost. And I really liked Brian Armstrong, the CEO. It was only him who was working on that project at the time. And I learned a little bit about Bitcoin at that point. I had never heard of Bitcoin before I talked to Brian Armstrong, so I had sort of a unique flavor into the Bitcoin world, because I learned from someone who is now running probably the largest Bitcoin company around.
And what's your first Bitcoin investment was in Coinbase?
Yes, yeah, and it was I think I was the first or second money in to the seed round, and and it was I learned a lot about Bitcoin. I got sort of excited because he was very impressive, and then so in between the first and the second sessions, we were looking at different technologies, and we realized I had a background in Bitcoin, and then we had someone, actually my partner, Brayton Williams' brother, come in to talk to us about Bitcoin, so we learned more. We ended up learning a lot more. I actually didn't know, after going down the rabbit hole now and understanding everything about Bitcoin fairly well, I did not know anything then, and you can attribute my investment into Coinbase up to probably a fair amount of luck, and just generally liking the founder. But we ended up focusing on Bitcoin because we got so excited about it, and we started going down that rabbit hole that everyone goes down, and finding out that there were so many different use cases for not only Bitcoin, the payment network, but also Bitcoin, the blockchain. And so we got very excited about that. We ended up that we were going to be accepting Bitcoin companies into our second tribe. We call them tribes. And the response was amazing. We were welcomed into the Bitcoin community. had 150 people reach out to me, from investors to entrepreneurs to enthusiasts, and I talked to all of them so that I got to know the industry well.
So the first tribe had no Bitcoin, and only from the second tribe, the second class, you guys started accepting Bitcoin companies.
Yes, and it was 7 out of 17 companies were Bitcoin. So it was still not a majority of the companies.
Right.
And then we just continued our Bitcoin focus without having it be 100% of our companies. And then we started to see like we went through a hype cycle, you know, like like Bitcoin went from $30 to $250, and then it went from $100 to $1,000, and then it's been sort of coasting downwards for the last 12 months. And during that 12-month period, I found that a lot of people were losing enthusiasm, but we were only building enthusiasm, because what I'm seeing is we've now invested in 50 Bitcoin companies. And we have all these data points on growth of all these Bitcoin companies, and all I see are all of them growing. They're growing at 10 to 20% month over month, and that's really exciting. That's real growth. That's real use.
But growth in terms of revenue, or growth in terms of users?
Generally, it's more. So it depends what the business is. So I would say on brokerages and exchanges and payment processors, it's based off of volume. I sort of structure my growth metric off of volume. If it's API-based companies, it's calls to the API. If it's wallets, it's users. If it's based off of the different company, there are different things that we actually look at.
Yeah. And right now, Tribe 5 is completely Bitcoin. Clevercoin.com, the European exchange I do the marketing for, is also part of Tribe 5. How many companies are
be a part of Boost?
And how many companies are part of Tribe 5?
So we have 25 companies in Tribe 5. 24 of them are Bitcoin. We actually have one that's for engineering and task management, but it's the 24 others are all Bitcoin, and it's a wide range of different things. 8 of them, including Clevercoin, to international to the United States, not to Norway. And then what else are we have? Remittance companies, brokerages, exchanges, blockchain companies, people just trying to proof of ownership, proof of logging things in the blockchain. We have we have some companies like we have a company that's making it a discount to buy gift cards with Bitcoin, and they're able to like manage that margin very well and make money off of it. So it's a wide range of different things. But what I've been calling the last year of Bitcoin, and I'm sorry, you guys can ask questions whenever. I'm sorry if I'm just talking. I don't know if that's how this is supposed to. But over the last year, like over the last 5 years, we really had this great technology, and it's been this really, really cool thing. And then like we beat it up. Like we had people try things and use things and scale things and break things. And we found that there are scaling problems, usability problems, like different things that different people, that are opportunities for different companies. And so I've been calling the last year of Bitcoin really repair mode year, because the price hasn't necessarily been all that. It's been boring. It's a boring price. Like it's sort of it's not crazy volatile. It's sort of like flattening around 250. It goes up to 300, down to 200. Like it's this weird thing. But what I'm seeing is the usefulness of Bitcoin is going really high. And so that's what we're really excited about, is that, so I've been trying to back things that are becoming more useful, and like what are the core use cases that Bitcoin will, what will be the first businesses that Bitcoin will really be used for to the masses. And I believe it's remittances, and a big piece of remittance is remittances, and then I also think the exchanges are good businesses, but it's more for the liquidity aspect, because all these remittance companies are going to need liquidity on either end of the country.
And with remittance, your father he bought Bitcoin from the auction from the U.S. Marshals, and he works together with Mirror, a company that's part of previous Boost class. I also happen to have invested a little bit in Mirror. They are going to use the liquidity also to work in developing nations and markets. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you guys are planning to do that and what's being done there?
So the goal with my dad, when he was thinking about bidding on the U.S. Marshall coin, he was sort of saying like, well, I don't want to just sit on it. Like if I buy it, I'm not going to just hold it. I want it to be put to work. And so he worked with Mirror to be able to figure out a way in which he could put it to work in emerging markets, and he could fill supply of those markets. And so he is working with Mirror to be sort of the supply side on a lot of emerging market brokerages.
So with remittance, I can imagine that for people living in Europe or the States, they want to send money back home to, let's say, the Philippines or Mexico. They can easily, of course, send bitcoins to someone's account, but then the person living in a country like that needs to convert it back into local currency in order to spend it. So there needs to be a way to kind of recycle the coins locally. How does it work, or what kind of solutions do your companies have for that?
So generally, the solutions that are being created are things like Clevercoin, actually, where they're providing an exchange or a brokerage to be able to cash out. Like a lot of the businesses and a lot of the profit being made in Bitcoin right now is not in the Bitcoin like payment network. It's on the cash in, cash out part. And so that's where Coinbase makes their money. That's where like any company that's made money is making money, really. Is basically in that cash out period, and you can do it cheaper with Bitcoin than you could with cash for small amounts of money. So if I want to send $10 million cross-border, like the charge they give me, like for TransferWise or for money for Western Union, is not like, it's not that bad. It's probably 0.5% or something. But if I want to send $100 cross-border, the price could be $20 for me to send that. And Bitcoin makes it 1% in, 1% out, essentially. So that, like, it is better. It is a better technology. It is a better service for small amounts of money. And what I'm excited about by that is the remittance market right now today is $500 billion. But if people could frictionlessly send smaller amounts of money cross-border, it makes the market size bigger of the number of people who will send money cross-border and bring money. I think it brings the world closer together. That's basically what my whole philosophy is on Bitcoin.
It's an obvious thing to use, obviously, Bitcoin for these kind of things. But personally, I think from a technological point of view and a Bitcoin point of view, it is a little bit boring business. It's a little bit like sometimes Bitcoin is compared with the internet in the early stage, and this is a bit like infrastructure company that
it's like the ISPs.
It's access, yeah. So do you see other things happening that are building on top of this infrastructure that are maybe a little bit more exciting for a person like me?
Yeah. So my philosophy on right now, like, so for the ecosystem in general, is at first it was really profitable to be a miner, like mining company, build mining rigs. Then it was really profitable to be an investor. So like if you just buy Bitcoin, even today it's probably more profitable to be an investor than a miner. Then eventually in the future, which we're setting ourselves up for, is like it will be more profitable to be an investor in the companies that are built on Bitcoin, because at some point the growth of Bitcoin will not be able to outperform the growth of a high growth company. And so we're moving in that, and inside of that bracket, what we're seeing is I think that the next generation, like there's the infrastructure companies, which were sort of first generation, the miners, the payment processors, the brokerages, which are the boring business, as you put it, which is relatively true, but boring business makes good business. The next level are the companies that are supporting the Bitcoin companies to be started. It's like the AWS web services, but for Bitcoin companies. It's the things that make those things easier, whether it be, well, BlockTrail is on here, but the BlockCypher is one of ours, Chain. There are a lot of these companies that are, I think those are the next big companies that are in the space. The ones that make the infrastructure level, basically basically make it, 16-year-old or 12-year-old kid be able to build a Bitcoin company. Like anything that like makes it easier to build a Bitcoin company is going to be the next big company in Bitcoin. And then you're going to see the cool, crazy, weird applications. You're going to see like, I don't know, like people are going to start playing with the blockchain in different ways. You're going to see, American Airlines put points on the blockchain. You're going to see like anything that with proof of work, proof of ownership is going to start being put on the blockchain. And then transactions are just going to be frictionless. I think Bitcoin works when you don't know you're using Bitcoin. And I think we're seeing it more and more common for that to pop up amongst Bitcoin companies. So
it's funny to say, like you mentioned kids earlier, and Johan said it could be a bit boring, but I saw tweets from Roger Ver the other day that he opened the wallets for some African kids, and they instantly received, across the world, they received Bitcoins on their wallets, on their phones, somewhere in Africa. And for example, last week I was in Colombia, in Medellin, in a poor neighborhood. There were 3 girls living on the street. They had no home, but they did have cell phones. So for people in those countries, it's everything but boring Bitcoin, and receiving Bitcoin directly from across the world and being able, hopefully, also to spend them locally without having to exchange them in national currency is, in my opinion, everything but boring and very liberating for people living in those countries.
Completely, well put. So what we try to think about is what Bitcoin does better than cash. And what Bitcoin does better than cash is send money cross borders, store a value, and those are really, those are the 2 things that it does much better on a general network. And in the United States, we often get caught up in the fact that the U.S. actually has a pretty stable banking system. Like we are 93% of our wealth is actually digitally in a bank, which is like a huge percentage, which means basically Bitcoin only makes us 7% better if everyone adopts it. And that's not like it's not a leapfrogging technology for us, but countries, you have to think internationally when thinking about Bitcoin. So Argentina, where they experience hyperinflation, they have 25% inflation every year. It is like necessary for them to figure out a better system than just their money not being worth what it is today. They actually have a black market for U.S. dollars in Argentina, and Bitcoin is actually a seamless way in which they can attain U.S. dollar value. There are a lot of companies in the sexier part of Bitcoin who are trying to solve the problem of pegging the Bitcoin to the U.S. dollar to limit volatility. And that's a very interesting thing, whether they're using color coins, counterparty, like whatever they're using. So technically, that is a sexy thing.
And what about altcoins? Because I saw on tweet, I think it was yesterday by Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. He said Ripple, Stellar, and altcoins are all distraction. Bitcoin is way too far ahead. We should be focused on Bitcoin and sidechains. And he got a lot of negative feedback on that tweet, but you actually replied to him saying, Brian, sometimes you say things that make me so attracted to you. Bitcoin is the one. So that was kind of a controversial tweet from your side as well. So, because I'm a big fan of altcoins and meta coins and 17.0 coins, whatever. I just want to experiment. So are you all in Bitcoin, or are you also looking to other coins as well?
So I'm 100% Bitcoin, but I would like to know why you like other altcoins, because there's no usefulness of other altcoins.
Well, there's all sorts of features that are being tested by other coins that might, when it comes to anonymity, when it comes to distribution of the coins, when it comes to speed, all sorts of things are being experimented using altcoins, and I think that's a good thing.
They're like copies of Bitcoin, and then they tweak something, and so I don't see anything that's like vastly better. I am listening for something that's 5x what Bitcoin is. Like if it's different and better for a specific circumstance, I think that there might be a coin that will actually be able to do that. However, it beat Bitcoin, but otherwise, like everything else is distracting. I mean, if you look up. If you look at volume, if you look at dollar amounts, if you look at like market size, all that stuff, Bitcoin is 95% of the market.
But following that argument, Bitcoin is a distraction to the dollar because the dollar is much bigger than Bitcoin, so we should just focus on the dollar then.
Well, we're talking about the evolution of a new technology, not the old way. So I'm saying in the new way, everyone's distracting themselves with thinking that there's a new way. It's too soon for something to innovate on the innovated. Like that's what I'm saying. And and Bitcoin essentially is the winner right now, and we're 5% distracted. Like Bitcoin makes up 95%. The other 5% is just a distraction of people trading and speculating. It's not. It's not useful. Like no one's using it for. The altcoins are not being used for a useful thing.
And but Job, I know, and Job is a big fan of NXT. So Job, what is your view on this one? Because I know you're a fan of NXT. So
yeah, and NXT is a 2.0 cryptocurrency. So
yeah.
It's not like an altcoin.
It's not like an altcoin, yeah, but
no, it's not like
yeah, but it's semantics. It has its own currency, so that's.
Yeah, but if you study a bit more on NXT, then you see they use that in a totally different way, and it's not actually. They don't actually see it as a currency themselves. It's a token for their network. If you want to do something on the NXT network, so you have to pay an NXT, and they don't actually. Of course, they have dollar value now because some people trade it for dollars, but that's not the purpose of that token, of that blockchain, in my opinion.
I will caveat my message. Well, saying that there are useful things to coinify, if you will, like I believe that shares of companies will eventually be coined. It will be represented as a token or as to be able to invest in companies, but we'll be investing on the Bitcoin blockchain. I don't think we're going to be investing in a different blockchain. I don't think we're going to be using a different blockchain. TCP/IP was one. There's one TCP/IP, and then there's like internet. TCP/IP wasn't the best technological of all the protocols, but it was mass adopted, and that is if we're looking at the similarities between the internet and Bitcoin, that's the one that I think will be true. Is that Bitcoin might not be the best. Iterating on it is sort of a waste of time, in my opinion, just because. We might as well make what's working work well, and that's until someone brings an altcoin to me that like literally has a use case that is like phenomenal. I can't say that I think any altcoins are really going to last a long time.
Okay, and tell us a bit more about Boost. Who funded Boost, and how much have you been investing in total in all these Bitcoin companies? All these 50.
So we're an accelerator. So we invest. So we've backed 97 companies at this point over the course of 5 tribes, 5 sessions. We do 2 sessions a year, and we invest $10,000 to $20,000. But on average, our Bitcoin companies have raised out of the program. They raised $800,000 seed rounds. That's on average, and for the Bitcoin companies specifically. And
is it an exit moment for you? Do you stay in the company, or is that usually also an exit moment for Boost?
Sorry, what did you say?
Is that also an exit moment for Boost usually whenever there's a next round after Boost? Or
no,
you stay?
We're long-term investors. So once we're invested until like boom or bust. And but we're always willing to, and we help along the way. We're not out at the next round.
Right.
But could you tell us a little bit more about your exit strategy? Have you done many exits? Is there a certain strategy? And also, there's obviously a lot of similar companies in the world that are doing the same. A lot of exchanges and everything. Do you see some sort of a consolidation coming in certain areas that you already see happening?
So for us, Bitcoin, if there was a big Bitcoin exit, you guys would have probably heard about it.
Maybe you had a scoop for us tonight.
so we've had one exit. It hasn't been it wasn't. We made money, but it wasn't a crazy huge exit. It still hasn't been announced, so I can't talk about it very much. And then there's one that should be happening in the next couple weeks to months that will also be a fun exit. And but on your second question, which is about consolidation, my goal for Bitcoin was really like start a bunch of these liquidity providers in every country, so the brokerages, the exchanges, so that they can hook up because if you look at other brokerages, being able to build 2 exchanges on 2 sides of different borders is very difficult because you are not localized as a business. You don't know. I don't know what's happening. I don't know the rules and regulations in Brazil. But someone in Brazil does know the rules and regulations in Brazil, and they can probably figure out a way to work with them. And so it would be just very difficult for one company to like go to every country and start these things. Whereas if everyone starts them at once, you can sort of have a remittance network already set up. Technically, right now, you could send money to almost any country in the world that has a Bitcoin brokerage to cash in, cash out, and actually do remittance for really cheap. 1% in, 1%. It's 1 to 2% in, 1 to 2% out. Like I always say 1% in, 1% out because that's the common methodology, but a lot of places have 2%. So I can't say that. But to answer your question, sorry to cut you off. To answer your question, these companies will be created. Like there will be, you know, Coinbase is probably going to try to spread internationally. They couple other countries, but that still leaves 200 other countries that can try to start be a big tycoon of a company, and it will be difficult for Coinbase to spread to the more localized emerging markets. I think it will be tough for them to just jump with their model and jump into like Argentina or India, or those models are like culturally they are all so much different, and so I think it's better to have those already set up by the locals.
Right, that's why you're betting on several brokerages and exchanges in different countries, because it's just too specific, too cultural and local to run a good exchange or a broker in a certain country. Yeah, and what about Coinbase? Coinbase is growing very big. And
Here, I'll answer this question. Hold on, you see this question on the side? Am I able to answer that?
Yeah, let's just for the audience. So we got a question from Richard Meyer. He's asking, why do you believe people from Greece, Ukraine, and Argentina are not converting their weak money en masse into bitcoins?
My answer is they should be. So originally, when Greece shut down their banking system and took 40% of everyone's money last year, or 2 years ago, I guess now, a year and a half ago, something like that. It was like March or April of 2012. When they just shut down all the banks and took everyone's money, like they were trying to figure out a different place to store value, and a lot of them were desperate and threw money into Bitcoin. I would actually say that some people have done that and are holding still, because it's better to control than like be controlled by a bank in that country, because they literally just experienced 40% of their money just going out the door.
It was 2013 in Cyprus, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, was it 2013?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, that's right, 2013. We had announced that we were accepting Bitcoin companies like a month before it.
So that was good timing, just before the rise, eh?
Yeah, it was like we couldn't have bet that would happen. We were like Bitcoin's cool, like let's try this, and then it's completely consumed my life. I mean, it's like my wife feels like I'm dating Bitcoin, but it's just one of those things.
We all know the feeling, yeah. But it's amazing that back then it led to a huge surge in attention and price and everything Bitcoin-wise, or maybe we thought that was the case, but now with Greece, even though the crisis is even worse and a lot of money fled the country and people are very much worried that the euro will break up, a Brexit is every day that people talk about a Brexit, but it still doesn't translate into growth of Greek users that much, or growth of the price or anything like that. So it's hard.
I think it's just so the reason that I think people are not throwing money into Bitcoin, to answer that question specifically, is that it's still a trust in this network and making sure, like they want to ensure that their money will be there, and I think that there's still skepticism about that, about whether or not Bitcoin is here to stay. I think the fact that no one has been able to kill it, like in 5 years of it being in existence and basically volume growing consistently over the last 5 years, I'm more enthusiastic about Bitcoin today than I was 2 years ago, just because like all I see are like value adds going and hitting the market, and there's so many smart all the smartest entrepreneurs I've met in the last like 2 years, most of them have been Bitcoin companies. Like it's like the smartest entrepreneurs are starting Bitcoin companies, and that brain power is going somewhere.
But how, for example, if we just trying to be a bit skeptical here, but some of the figures I recently heard is, for example, Coinbase, and not Coinbase, I mean BitPay. Apparently, I read somewhere on Reddit they had to lay off some people. I guess they're burning a lot of money, but they don't have that much income yet. Also, we saw in the UK that exchange NetEjo decided to close its door because of a lack of money and growth. Do you expect more victims, or do you expect the number of victims to rise over the coming time? Or?
So, the issue that everyone's running into is that it's hard to start a company even if it's not a Bitcoin company. So it's hard to start a Bitcoin company doubly. And so you have to be running a company on top of a market that is still a little unstable. And so I mean, you know, BitPay, all these companies that might be struggling. By the way, downsizing is not always a horrible thing. Sometimes it does mean that they're running capital high, but they might be trying to cut costs to be profitable, or cut costs to stay around a long time. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know anything about that really. I have been seeing. Like, I feel that. I don't know. Like, the marketing around Bitcoin has slowly become more positive again. I don't know if you guys have noticed it really yourselves, but I feel that like the press was bashing it for like a year. Like the last year literally has just been like a bash fest. And then just in the last couple months, like since Coinbase raised, it feels like it's becoming more legitimate. I feel that also venture investors have a huge FOMO, fear of missing out, and I feel that they're starting to really believe that Bitcoin is going to be an industry. It might not be an industry next year, but in 10 years, and they feel that they need to make a bet soon. So I'm getting reached out to by a lot more venture investors just to meet up and talk.
In the States, but in Europe, not so much, it seems. How do you explain the difference between the attitude of you guys in Silicon Valley and most of the... It's almost like in Europe you need to have profit and a well-established product, and in the States it's almost like a PowerPoint and a promise is enough.
So that's a cultural thing that's been built over like the last 60 years in Silicon Valley. That's just how we've been built. And the reason was that investors... My great-grandfather started a venture capital grad right out of college, and so you don't have to be able to like you don't have a product or anything. You just have like your word, and so that started working because there's such a great network in Silicon Valley of hard workers and great people, and the people, you know, people with a lot of money, because you know all these great companies have been started around here, and so that like it's a huge cultural thing. I don't think anyone should try to duplicate what Silicon Valley has, because you can't. It's not. You can make a startup ecosystem in different countries. It just won't represent what Silicon Valley has. It won't be the same. Like no one should. You shouldn't. What I'm saying is you shouldn't compare it to Silicon Valley, because we're just vastly different countries. And I'd say like when you're starting a company I mean, sometimes I actually like to see a little profit on the. Just so you know, like investors in Silicon Valley like that also. It's not,
eventually.
It's not that we don't not like it, don't reject it.
Like allergic to profit or something. No, okay.
Yeah, but I feel like if you wanted to create something that was analogous to what Silicon Valley is in California, like you should just play to your strengths, whatever Norway's strengths are, or whatever any country's strengths are. In Europe, in Asia, wherever they are, like you really want to form it around those things. Like we even see, you know, in New York, they have a much better epicenter for finance than in Silicon Valley, because that's where that's like the financial hub of the United States is in New York.
But if you guys become successful in Silicon Valley and all the tribe companies will flourish, then the focus, then your focus could shift to Silicon Valley, right? You guys will be the new Wall Street.
Yeah, so Boost will change that, but in the meantime, it still feels that the infrastructure for fintech companies is better in New York, as well as fashion, as well as ad tech. Like there are specific things with what Silicon Valley does well is crazy weird. That's 10 years out. Like, we'll fund and we'll figure out how to make it.
Okay, your connection is breaking up a bit, I think. I'm not sure if the others get that too, but anyway, maybe again we should also, we already have spent half an hour, so let's just maybe ask final questions from Job and Johan. Job, you have a sort of a final question for Adam?
Yeah, well, after this last point, I just want to ask, is Ben Losky on one of your tribes now? In the fifth, maybe?
Actually, that'd be a great speaker to have. I'll try to email him. I have no connection to Ben Losky, but it'd be really great. Actually, one of our biggest problems is still the bank problem. Like getting a bank account for a Bitcoin company is still super difficult.
And keeping it, so getting it and keeping it, that's very difficult, yeah. But you think it's even more difficult in the States than in Europe? Because in Europe we have Feeder Bank and some other entities that are willing to cooperate, but is it in the States even more difficult? Or?
Yeah, I mean now it is. Like a lot of the banks sort of they backed one, or they like SVB. Technically, they've backed 4, I think, but all of those companies had raised $20 million or more. So it sort of like mitigated a lot of the risk. And then they've backed a bunch of other companies. Like I think it's great that SVB has done that because that's more innovative than almost any other bank. Like most other banks ask you if they say, you're not dealing with Bitcoin, are you? Like that's one of the questions when you're opening up a tech bank account at like Wells Fargo.
The first 2 questions: no drugs, no Bitcoin.
Yeah.
These questions they ask.
Yeah, they're like, are you a weed business? Are you a Bitcoin business? And are you a porn business? Like they like throw all those together.
Maybe you should start a Draper Bank.
Quite honestly, I did look into it. It's not worth starting with. Like
Boost Bank sounds better even.
Yeah, well, what you would, yeah, it's a whole other conversation. But like it was either I would have to start, but I would leave Boost and start a bank that would bank Bitcoin companies, or I would keep doing Boost. And I enjoy my job. I don't think I would enjoy running a bank. That was basically my thought process. Like I'm still actually thinking and. Like, it's that big of a problem that it's still in the back of my mind. Like, maybe if we get it started right now, like, in a year, it's not going to be an issue, and we'll just have this bank. But, yeah, it's just one of those weird things.
Right, okay, well, awesome. Johan, maybe a final question for Adam?
Well, I just was wondering, by selecting new companies, are there a particular kind of company now, where are there companies that you would like to invite to join Boost in particular areas?
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
All right. Are you looking for particular companies for Boost to join? Is there certain areas within the Bitcoin ecosystem that you're really looking into and actually inviting companies to join?
So yeah, like onto your consolidation question, almost is like we've launched 8 or 9 brokerages and exchanges now. We're probably not going to be launching many more brokerages. Like we sort of feel that has like the ones that are out there, and those are going to be the big brokerages in the next 5-10 years. So what we're trying to look for next are like the things that make Bitcoin more usable, things that incentivize people to use Bitcoin over dollars. That's something that I feel is a very big thing. Opening up specific remittance corridors, that's a big thing. B2B cross-border transactions, that's another big thing. The blockchain, we're seeing a lot more blockchain tech apply to Boost now. So like, there's a lot more using the public ledger. There's a lot more, and I don't even know what that's going to like. I don't know what use cases the blockchain is really good for yet. I don't think anyone really knows yet. And so that's going to take a lot of trial and error. And so we're looking at a lot of companies that are. We have one called BitProof in this session that originally was just trying to replace notaries. and now it looks like he's going to experiment on what people want to log into the blockchain, and see what sticks. And we're really interested. And then I wrote a blog post about what we're looking for, and it's on my blog at adamdraper.com, and then you have to click the Medium link, but it's there somewhere. But also we're looking for anything that we haven't thought of. Like, those are the companies that we really want to see, or like the things that they're solving big problems, and we just are like, how is the blockchain used for this? How is that a possibility? Making hoverboards with the blockchain, and I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds very interesting, and I would be happy to see how that works. So I don't know. We're on our track. Like, we promised 100 Bitcoin companies by 2017. It's 2015, beginning-ish of 2015, and we've done 50. We're probably going to be keeping the Bitcoin focus for another 2 sessions. Completely Bitcoin, I mean. And in order to get to that 100 number, and then we'll probably open it up into, like, I feel Bitcoin eventually will just be fintech, so it'll be a part of that sector, because no one pitches me I'm starting an internet company anymore. Like, it would be redundant to say that you're starting an internet company, because if you're a tech company, I assume you're using the internet. So I think Bitcoin is the same. Like, right now everyone's pitching Bitcoin companies, but eventually it's just going to be, I'm changing this thing in finance, and I assume that you're using Bitcoin, otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
All right, awesome. Job just said he has one final question before we wrap up, so if it's okay with you.
Maybe not a final question, but maybe some advice for our viewers, because you saw a lot of and heard a lot of pitches, obviously, about Bitcoin companies in the last couple of years already. What's the most common mistake you see, or what's the one advice you want to give everybody who wants to do a Bitcoin company pitch?
The biggest mistake I see with Bitcoin companies are people shoving Bitcoin into their pitch when it doesn't belong there. Like, people will be like, well, I'm a cookie shop, but we accept Bitcoin. Like, that isn't, you're not a Bitcoin company. Unless it's the core of your business, I would say that's the most common thing, is like forcing it in. I don't believe Bitcoin should be forced in. Like, one of our companies is sort of, in the short term, probably going to have to move away from Bitcoin in order to make Bitcoin work in the long term. And like, I'm not forcing Bitcoin in any of these companies. I want it to be a useful tool for the companies to be able to make their business work. On top of that, I would say advice for pitches. I find it very difficult. Okay, so 2 things. One, be passionate about the problem you're solving. So that would be one of my things. It's just like, the why of why you are building the company is the most important thing we look at. Especially at seed stage, because sometimes traction isn't really there, so we have to we have to believe in the person, and the reason why they are building the company is always the most compelling. The second thing is, I find it very difficult to say no to someone who is super enthusiastic. So, like, if they are enthusiastic and they understand their problem and the reason they're doing it is really good, I find it very difficult to say no to that type of person. And I think most people are the same way, where if they are so driven and so, like, passionate and enthusiastic about it's like, yeah, I'm getting swept up in this. Here, take some of my money. Like, you get caught up in the whole thing. So
shut up and take my money.
Yeah, enthusiasm has this, like, captivating effect if, like, they're so passionate about it. So those are my, like, 3 little tip points, I would say.
Well, your enthusiasm is very contagious, for sure, Adam. So I think a lot of people can learn from your enthusiasm.
One of the things I felt bad about was bashing altcoins. Like, I think that they're cool, but I don't think they're useful. So those are my, like, I tried not to be negative. Like, I just believe in Bitcoin so heavily that I'm just not even looking at altcoins. That's basically what my thought process.
You're just waiting for the killer altcoin, and then you will be more positive towards it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm like, more than happy to be proven wrong.
What's that? The first altcoin you kill, the Bitcoin killer app, or what's that?
Yeah, it's like a war out there. It's like a war out there. Well, Adam, do you have anything to add yourself?
Well, I mean, I'll do a little, like, hey, if you're starting a Bitcoin company, apply to Boost.vc. and we would love to review your applications. Yeah.
Yeah, because Tribe 6 applications can now be submitted, right? Until when?
No, it's actually not open yet. So we'll open it up in, I think we start opening them in May. So we'll open up applications in May.
Yeah, but really enthusiastic entrepreneurs can already, of course, start sending you and spamming you with emails.
Yeah. info@boost.vc. We look at all the emails. So if you want to apply at info@boost.vc, we apply there. We'd be happy to review them early.
Right. Well, I would recommend anyone to start working with Adam, because so far I've enjoyed working with Adam very much. And thanks for your time on the show today. Hopefully people have learned a lot, and maybe we can do it again in the future when you have Tribe 6.
This was very, very fun. So, and it was great to meet you guys, and we'll talk later. Have a good one.
Okay, have a good one. See you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.